Hey guys, Brad from SimpleGuitar.com here, and thanks for coming back to another video. Now, whether you're new and you're just learning your first chords, or you've been playing guitar for a while and you stumble onto a new chord in a song that you're learning, you need a way that you can learn new chords fast and easy and get them down quickly so that you don't have to stumble through songs and stop and pause and change to this new unfamiliar chord. So today I'm going to show you the method that I use with students to help them learn a brand new chord in as little as 6 minutes instead of taking 3 to 4 weeks like most guitar players do when they are trying to get a new chord down. And it's the same thing that I do when I'm learning a new song and there's a chord that I don't know. I do the same thing and it helps get this chord down so much faster. Now here's the thing, this is really more about the connection between your brain and your hand. There's no such thing really as muscle memory because your muscles don't have neural tissue, which is what your brain has. Interestingly enough, they have found that neural tissue in your heart and in your gut, but your muscles don't have it. So there's no such thing as muscle memory. What it is the connection between your brain and your hand. It's your brain-hand connection. And the connections that are made in your brain, or the pathways that are made in your brain whenever you perform a certain thing. And so anytime you're learning something new, the more repetitions you do, the more you build up that connection or that pathway in your brain, which makes it easier for you to do it every successive time. So the more repetitions that you do of something, especially if you do them correctly, the faster that your brain builds that connection and makes it easier for you to do it down the road. Now, how most people get their repetitions in with new chords is they're usually learning a song and they have a new chord, and what they do is they make that chord one time and then they go through the rest of the song. And then they come to that new chord and they have to stop and they pause and they're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and awkwardly get that chord formed, and then they keep going, right? And then every time that they do that, they're playing that chord one time every time that it comes around. What we want to do is we actually want to shorten the window that it takes for you to get a lot of repetitions in of playing that new chord. And we can do that, and we're going to do it in about 6 minutes. So the method that I like to use, I call these chord squeezes with students. And what we do is we take a new chord that you're learning. For example, let's say that this is the chord that I'm learning. This is a 7th chord shape. It's the 7th fret on my 5th string. It's the 6th fret on my 4th string, the 7th fret on my 3rd string, and then the 5th fret on my 2nd string. It looks like a C7 chord. If you know your C7, I'm just sliding that shape up and not playing the 1st string, okay? So let's say that's the chord that I want to learn. Here's what you do. You form the chord with your fingers, okay? So I'm going to put all 4 of my fingers right where they go for that chord, and then what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze all the fingers that you use for that chord all at once, and you're going to just squeeze it as hard as you can. And then you're going to relax. But when you relax your fingers, you're not going to let them leave the strings. You want them to stay in contact with the strings. You're just squeezing and then you relax. And then you squeeze and then you relax. And you're going to repeat that 50 times. Now, this is not about speed. This is a lot more about accuracy. So you're going to make sure that you do a really good hard squeeze and then you relax. And then a hard squeeze and then relax. Doing this 50 times should only take you about 1 minute, but you do have to sit there and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to zoom in just on my fretting hand because that's what you're going to need to see to do this. And I'm going to show you how to do what I call chord squeezes. Okay, so to do this, we've zoomed in here on my fretting hand so that you can see these chord squeezes. Because what we're going to do is we're going to use this as we're learning this new chord, whatever chord it is. You can do this with any chord. It could be your first chords, could be advanced chords, whatever. But right here, I'm going to use this chord, which is an A13 chord, just so that you can see all 4 fingers really good. So let's say that this A13 chord is the chord that I'm trying to learn. I ran into it in a song, and so I need to get this chord down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place all 4 fingers wherever they need to go for the chord. So in this case, I'm putting my first finger on the 5th fret of my 6th string, my second finger on the 5th fret of my 4th string, my third finger on the 6th fret of my 3rd string, and then my pinky is on the 7th fret of my 2nd string, and that gives me this. I'm just muting my 5th string, okay? It doesn't get played. But it doesn't matter what chord it is. So let's say that your fingers are for whatever chord you're learning, you're in position. What you're going to do is you're going to squeeze all the fingers that you're using for the chord at the same time. So I'm going to take all 4 fingers and just squeeze them down as hard as I can. And then I'm going to relax. And then notice how I didn't let my fingers leave the strings. My fingers are still on the strings. So what I want to do is I want to repeat that. I want to just go squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax, and do this 50 times. Now, it's not about speed. You don't have to go squeeze, 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 squeeze. It's about accuracy, because every time you do this squeeze and then you relax, it's the same for your brain as having played that chord one time. So we're just going to squeeze hard and then relax, and squeeze hard and relax, and squeeze hard and relax. And doing 50 of these should only take you about 1 minute. So if you want to, you can pause right now, pick a chord, and do 50 of these chord squeezes without your fingers leaving the strings 50 times, and then come back and hit play, and we'll keep going, okay? Now, once you've done that, once you've done 50 squeezes with your fingers still staying on the strings, we're going to do it again. But this time you're going to squeeze. And then when you take your fingers barely off the strings, maybe a millimeter, I still feel like my fingertips are barely touching the strings, but I'm just barely lifting up right above where they are, and then squeezing from there. And then barely off the strings and squeeze, and barely off the strings and squeeze. And this is round 2. You're going to do this 50 times too. So squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax. But when you relax, you're barely coming off the strings, and you do that for 50 more times. So if you want to pause and do round 2, you can also do that right now, and then come back, and we will go on with round 3. Okay, so for round 3, what we're going to do is the same thing. We're still going to squeeze, and when we relax, we're actually going to take our fingers off the strings. But here's the trick. You got to make sure that you do all your fingers that you're using at the same time, with the squeezing and the taking off. But you don't want your fingers to, you want to keep your fingers above the strings that they are supposed to be playing. So I'm going to take them off maybe about a 1/4 of an inch, which isn't very far, right? So not too far off the strings. And then from there, I'm going to squeeze. So come off about 1/4 of an inch, and then squeeze, and off and squeeze, relax and squeeze, squeeze, relax, squeeze, right? Oh, I get mixed up. But now for round 3, you're going to do this 50 times, okay? And it's the same idea. We're squeezing and relaxing and squeezing and relaxing. But now when you relax, you're coming off the strings about 1/4 of an inch. But keep your fingers over the strings that they're supposed to be playing, so that your hand maintains that chord shape, and then squeeze from where you are in the air. So if you want to pause and do round 3, go right ahead and do that, and then come back, and we'll go on with round 4. Okay, so with round 4, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. You're going to squeeze, but now when you come off the strings and relax, you're going to come off about 1/2 an inch. So squeeze, and then come off 1/2 an inch, and squeeze, and 1/2 an inch, and squeeze, and 1/2 an inch, and squeeze, and 1/2 an inch, okay? So as we go through these rounds, we're getting further and further and further off the strings, right? So we're getting about 1/2 an inch off the strings now. And then you squeeze. So for round 4, do that 50 times. So you can pause right now. You can do round 4 if you want to, and then come back, and we'll do round 5. Okay, so for round 5, what we're going to do is the same thing. We're still going to squeeze all 4 fingers, or all 3 fingers, however many fingers are in your chord. You're going to squeeze them all at once, and then relax, but you're going to come off the strings about 1 inch. Okay, so we're coming off the strings further and further and further and further, okay? But this way, your fingers should still be staying pretty much in the same shape of the chord when they come off the strings, and then make sure that you are squeezing all 4 fingers or all 3 fingers all at the same time. What you don't want to do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and place your fingers individually. You want to place them all at once so that your hand thinks of this chord as one block unit, that your one shape that your whole hand makes simultaneously. So for round 5, do that 50 times, about an inch off the strings when you relax and squeeze. And if you want to pause and do that for a minute and then come back, we'll go on with round 6. Okay, for round 6, and you could keep going with this, but usually at this point, students are far enough along. What we're going to do is you're going to squeeze and then take your fingers off, but you're going to completely open up your hand and then squeeze, and then open your hand and then squeeze, and then open your hand and then squeeze, and then open your hand and squeeze, open, squeeze. So now your hand is completely coming off the strings and opening up and going from that. And then you're going to squeeze this for 50 times for round number 6. Okay. And if you've done round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, this should only take about 6 minutes if you do it back to back. But here's the thing. Like I said, every time you squeeze that new chord, it's the same thing in your brain as if you're playing that chord, right? And so it helps build that connection. So rather than taking forever to play through a whole chord progression or a song, and it takes forever to play that chord multiple times because you're changing chords and you're going to different stuff, and you only come around that chord once every 30 seconds or so. Now we're doing 50 of these in a minute, and in 6 minutes, you're getting about 300 times that you're forming this chord. So this really, really, really shortens the window for the repetitions that you need to make to get this chord to sound awesome. So have fun with that. Okay, so that is how you do chord squeezes to learn a new chord anytime that you run onto a chord that's giving you some trouble, okay? Now, use this anytime you run onto a new chord, or you have a chord that you're like, oh, I want to learn that chord. If you use this method to do it, you're going to get that chord down in just a few minutes instead of taking weeks and weeks to get it down. It does require some focus, right? It's kind of boring. It might feel like it's long, but it's really not. I mean, you sit there for a minute and you have to focus and count to 50 and do the squeezes and make sure that you're doing it right. But when you do that, doing it in a few minutes is going to give you a huge head start rather than taking weeks of just playing the same thing over and over and getting fewer repetitions per minute. And like I said before, this takes advantage of your brain-hand connection, which is what's really important when it comes to playing guitar, not muscle memory. And so by doing this is really going to help you out a lot and make sure that your brain and your hand are connected really good. So with this under your belts, now you can use this anytime you need a new chord. So don't be afraid of learning new chords. If a new chord pops up, don't worry about it, because now you know that you can master it in just a few minutes instead of it taking forever. So that's it today, guys. Have fun with that. Go learn some new chords by doing these chord squeezes. Have fun with it. I've had a lot of students learn all sorts of fun chords doing this, and they learn it so much faster. But if you haven't already gotten it, I already do have a gift for you at my website. If you go to simpleguitar.com/top10, there you can pick up the top 10 things to learn on guitar first, which is a free guide for you about the top 10 things I like to teach students first, including chords. Okay. And you can use the chord squeezes with the stuff that you're going to learn in the top 10 things to learn on guitar first. And it's going to help you impress your friends faster and feel like a rock star and get you a lot of bang for your buck so that you make a lot of musical progress with your guitar playing right away. So go to simpleguitar.com/top10, get that guide. Have fun doing these chord squeezes and learning new chords. If this was helpful for you, do hit the like button for me and leave a comment if you have questions. That's cool. I get down there and I help everybody in the comments. Anybody who asks a question, I get down there and help you right away. But thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have an awesome day. Have fun learning some new chords, and I will catch you in the next video.